Thank you, and greetings everyone. I'm Jeff Woolsey, and welcome to my session today, Migrating and Modernizing Servers to Azure. We've got a packed agenda. Today we'll discuss industry predictions, why customers are moving to Azure, use cases, success stories, and modernizing on-premises with Azure Arc and Azure Stack HCI. So let's get started. 2 years ago, organizations were responding to immediate needs created by the global pandemic. Last year, we saw them recovering by enabling effective hybrid work and adopting emerging technologies to stay competitive. Now, the good news is that we see many organizations being very successful through the recovery with new approaches utilizing the cloud and, in some cases, looking to reimagine their businesses for the long term. Many of you are thinking about planning what's next, focusing on value, reducing cost, and adapting business models and product offerings as central to this change. Migration and modernization to the cloud have several triggers when our users think about their digital transformation. I'm going to focus on a few. Rapidly scaling apps and infrastructure to meet surge demand. Several industries such as healthcare, retail have been seeing a surge in demand. They're finding that their existing systems and solutions just can't keep up. Application innovation and faster time to market. The ability to innovate fast was key to several businesses surviving lockdowns and changes in consumer spending patterns, such as enabling curbside pickup in apps and enabling telehealth visits for medical needs. And finally, enabling hybrid work. With lockdowns and an increasingly hybrid workforce, cloud adoption is key to maintaining productivity and business continuity wherever the workforce resides. So, why are customers moving to Azure? Well, here are a few reasons. Enterprise-grade infrastructure for less. With Azure, you can future-proof your business and IT by moving to best-in-class, highly resilient cloud infrastructure that costs up to 5 times less than AWS. You can move on your terms with hybrid flexibility. We understand that your investments will span cloud and on-premises for the foreseeable future. Azure Hybrid Cloud Solutions help you reuse, manage, and govern your assets consistently across hybrid environments with Azure Arc. You can protect your valuable assets with trusted cloud security. With Azure, we've got your back. Get security from the ground up, backed by experts and proactive compliance. With AI-infused security intelligence, we help you detect and protect your investments against rapidly evolving cybersecurity threats. Now, speaking of security, in July 2021, we announced expanded free extended security updates to include Windows Server and SQL Server when extended support for 2012 and 2012 R2 releases come to an end. You can migrate your Windows Server and SQL 2012 workloads to Azure and get free, that's right, free extended security updates. Now, once they're in Azure, they can take advantage of services such as Azure Auto Manage, App Service, Azure VMware Solutions, Azure Virtual Desktop, and Azure Kubernetes Service to modernize these workloads. Similarly, for the data layer, once you migrate to Azure SQL Managed Instance, patching and upgrade will be a thing of the past. It's done automatically. For users that are running their workloads on premises and cannot meet the end of support deadline, there are 2 support options. You have the option to purchase extended security updates for Windows Server and SQL Server 2012, or you can deploy these on Azure Stack HCI, where these extended security updates are included. Now, many users are already taking advantage of Azure's commitment to security and compliance and have moved to Azure Protect their 2008 and 2008 R2 workloads with free extended security updates. Now, for those users who need just a little bit more time to upgrade and modernize their Windows Server and SQL Server 2008 and 2008 R2 on Azure, we will now provide 1 additional year of extended security updates only on Azure. Free extended security updates are one of many reasons to migrate to Azure. Another is enterprise-grade cloud infrastructure. When we say enterprise-grade cloud infrastructure, here are just a few stats. Azure provides our customers massive cloud scale with 69 Azure regions, more than AWS and GCP combined. Azure can support the largest scale-up workloads in the world, supporting up to, get this, 960 CPU threads, and up to 24 terabytes of RAM. Now, if you don't need that configuration, we have over 700 VM sizes to choose from. And of course, high availability, that's a given. Our promise is 4 nines, 99.99% uptime for a single instance VM. But in fact, the VM uptime is 99.996 based on the rolling 12-month average, which is better than what's promised. The security of our cloud infrastructure is unmatched in the industry, with over $1 billion in annual investments and over 3,500 security experts. So, what can you run on this infrastructure? Well, whatever you'd like. Because of this world-class infrastructure, Azure can support all your workloads, such as Azure Virtual Desktop. You get the best multi-session experience without the hassle of setting up VDI brokers or managing hardware. For Microsoft workloads like Windows Server and SQL Server, Azure provides the lowest total cost of ownership. Windows Server is up to 5 times less expensive than AWS with the Azure Hybrid benefit. Furthermore, Azure Auto Manage can help you simplify your IT operations and deliver some killer functionality like SMB over Quick, Azure Extended Networking, and hot patching, so you can patch your VMs without downtime. Now, do you need to run Linux, Windows, VMs, containers? We've got you covered. In fact, more than 50% of Azure VMs run Linux, and we continue to see tremendous growth. Next, we have specialized workloads like VMware, Oracle, NetApp, Cray, and yes, SAP. Microsoft and SAP have over a 25-year partnership with an extensive partner ecosystem. It's no wonder that SAP customers broadly favor Azure. Azure is also the most trusted cloud, with the most Fortune 500 companies running on Azure, and the most of them choosing Azure for their most complex SAP landscapes. In fact, SAP is so trusted and reliable that, of course, both Microsoft and SAP, we run our own internal business processes on SAP on Azure. Another example is Chobani. Chobani is a producer of delicious, nutritious food. I myself love some almond cocoa loco myself. Chobani chose SAP S/4HANA as its ERP system. And with its current partner Coj Information Technology, Chobani has further enhanced SAP on Azure by introducing new capabilities to support business analytics and disaster recovery initiatives. Next, let's discuss a critical and very popular Azure service, Azure Virtual Desktop. Now, traditional VDI or virtual desktop infrastructure can be complex. The best way to modernize VDI is in the cloud with Azure Virtual Desktop. With Azure Virtual Desktop, you can give users access to Windows 10 or 11 from anywhere with the built-in intelligent security options of the Microsoft Cloud. We manage the underlying infrastructure and make it easy for you to deploy and scale new users in minutes. And of course, it's Windows multi-session, so you can optimize multiple desktops per Azure VM for maximum cost effectiveness. In fact, you can check out this Forrester study, The Total Economic Impact of Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop, where customers found a 59% cost savings on deployment and maintenance and a 210% ROI over traditional on-premises solutions. One example of Azure Virtual Desktop success has been at Imperial College in London. During the COVID-19 lockdown, Imperial College London had to provide 20,000 students remote classes and access to 450 proprietary apps installed on 3,500 on-campus computers. Imperial College uses Azure Virtual Desktop for remote learning and Windows Enterprise multi-session for high utilization of virtual machines and pooling 4 users per VM. Instructors can then configure special computer environments using Azure Lab Services. Now, with this solution, Imperial College provides remote learning in a Windows desktop environment that students can access regardless of their locations or device types. Using only 1/4 of the VMs normally required, it raises utilization while lowering compute costs. Now, you may be thinking, hey Jeff, this is great for workloads I can move to the cloud. But my organization has workloads that need to stay on premises for data sovereignty, regulatory, or latency reasons. No problem. This leads directly to what we're doing with Azure Stack HCI and Azure Arc. Our mission with Azure Stack HCI and Azure Arc is to deliver the best of Azure to you on your servers that you control with your preferred tools on your premises. Azure Stack HCI is a hyper-converged solution, which means compute, networking, and storage are all delivered as a solution. Azure Stack HCI solutions can start as small as 2 nodes, small enough to fit in a backpack, and scale all the way up to data center solutions. Azure Stack HCI is also delivered as an Azure service. This means that once you register your Azure Stack HCI, it's a process that takes less than a minute, you will see your Azure Stack HCI in the Azure portal and be able to use Azure management tools such as the Azure portal, CLI, SDK, or even the Azure mobile app. You can go to the Azure mobile app and enter the name of an Azure Stack HCI cluster, such as this one called Texas, and here it is. I can see all the resources, subscriptions, and resource groups because everything is taggable. Everything is globally searchable. Everything flows through the same role-based access control system, regardless of whether it's in the cloud or on premises with Azure Stack HCI. Now, we covered a lot, so let me sum up how you can migrate and modernize to Azure on your terms. The first step is adopting a hybrid strategy is unified operations and management with Azure Arc. For workloads that run outside of Azure, you can onboard all these resources to Azure with Azure Arc, including Windows, Linux, SQL servers, and Kubernetes clusters. Once you've done that, you can easily extend management services like Azure Policy, Azure Monitor, Azure Security Center, Sentinel, so you can manage, govern, and secure your hybrid and multi-cloud environments consistently. The second step is building cloud-native apps and run Azure services anywhere. More than ever, organizations are building modern apps using Kubernetes containers across cloud, on-premises, and the edge. With Azure Arc right from the Azure portal, customers can deploy a common set of Kubernetes configurations to their clusters wherever they are, consistently and at scale. Azure Arc enables developers to centrally code and deploy cloud-native applications securely to any Kubernetes cluster using GitOps. The third step is modernize your data estate with Azure Data Services. We understand there are going to be times you need aspects of your Azure applications and services to run locally within an environment. With Arc-enabled data services, you get an evergreen SQL deployment that is always up to date. This full automation of updates also applies to Postgres databases running on Azure Arc. Now you can manage data assets running on premises alongside those running in Azure using the same familiar tools like Azure Portal, Azure Data Studio, and Azure CLI. And you get the automation and elasticity support even for data workloads running in places where you don't have continuous connection to public clouds or any connection at all. Finally, modernize your data center with our Azure Stack portfolio. We can help bring our Azure services directly to your data center, to your edge, your branch office with Azure Stack HCI. Azure Stack HCI is delivered as an Azure service. This means that once you log in and register your Azure Stack HCI, it automatically appears in the Azure portal. No scripts to run, no agents to maintain, because Azure is integrated. Couple this with secured core, and you have industry-leading security. And with that, I want to thank you very much for your time.